Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be diving deep into something that should be especially relevant for those of you out there prepping for your UPSC exams.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the Z-Morh Tunnel.
Now, you already know that these sorts of big infrastructure projects are really important for both mains and prelims
Oh, absolutely. And this tunnel is a perfect example of why.
because it touches on economic development strategic implications.
It's been in the news a lot too lately, so you definitely want to be up to speed on this one.
For sure. So let's start with the basics.
Okay, so the Z-Morh Tunnel, it's a 6.5-kilometer tunnel up in the Himalayas.
Whoa.
I know, right? It connects Sonamarg in the Kashmir Valley to Gagangir. And it's pretty unique because it gives you year-round access to Ladakh, even during the winter when everything is usually covered in snow.
Okay, so to make sure I'm following you, why don't we back up just for a second? Why was this tunnel such a big deal in the first place?
Right. You always need context, especially for the UPSC. So Ladakh is this amazing region. It's beautiful, strategically important. But for months every year, it was totally cut off because of all the snow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it impacted everything. The people living there, tourism, defense.
I bet.
The Z-Morh Tunnel changes that completely.
Wow, that's a pretty big impact.
Definitely.
Okay, so you called this an engineering marvel.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, just thinking about carving out a tunnel through the Himalayas.
At 8,650 feet.
Yeah, 8,650 feet. That's incredible. What were some of the challenges in actually building something like that?
I mean, you have to think about all the logistics of it. We're not just talking about digging a hole in the ground. You're up in the mountains.
Right.
You've got crazy weather.
And the mountains themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Making sure it can handle the pressure from all that rock. So initially, the project was started in 2012 by the Border Roads Organization, BRO.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, well, they ran into some issues.
Oh, no.
Mostly financial and administrative stuff with the contractor they hired.
That's got to be frustrating.
It happens a lot with these huge projects,
Yeah.
though.
I guess that makes sense. So how'd they get back on track? Did the National Highways and Infrastructure Development Corporation Limited step in? The NHIDCL.
Exactly. They retendered the project in 2019 and brought in NHIDCL.
They're the ones known for handling those really complex projects.
Right. And they were able to get the ball rolling again.
Awesome.
Yeah, the tunnel was actually ready to go at the beginning of 2024.
Oh, I remember reading about that.
Yeah.
But the official inauguration didn't happen until later in the year.
Right. They had to do a soft opening first because of the Model Code of Conduct.
Oh, right. Because of the Jammu and Kashmir elections.
Exactly. It's that rule that says the government can't announce any new projects or anything like that that could influence voters during an election.
Gotcha. Makes sense. It's kind of a polity thing, right?
Yeah, you might see it come up in those kinds of questions.
Okay, good to know. So we've established that building this tunnel was a huge engineering challenge.
Oh, yeah.
But what about the technology? I mean, what makes the Z-Morh Tunnel so special in that way?
Well, so it's not just a tunnel. It's 2 lanes designed for both efficiency and safety. It can handle 1,000 vehicles an hour going at 70 kilometers per hour.
70 kilometers an hour. That's pretty fast for a tunnel.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive considering where it is.
That's true. But wait, with speeds like that, doesn't safety become an even bigger concern? Especially up so high.
Absolutely. And that's why this tunnel has a parallel escape passage.
Oh, what's that?
So it's basically a corridor 7.5 meters wide that runs the entire length of the main tunnel. If there's an emergency, breakdown, a fire, whatever,
Uh-oh.
people can get out quickly and safely through the escape passage.
So they really thought of everything.
They did. It minimizes the risk and makes evacuations a lot easier.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So we've got this incredible piece of engineering in a strategically important location.
Yeah.
Can you connect the dots for us a little? What's the strategic significance of the Z-Morh Tunnel, especially in the context of the UPSC syllabus?
All right. So this is where things get really interesting for UPSC aspirants, especially if you're focusing on defense. So imagine trying to maintain a strong military presence in Ladakh, right on the border with Pakistan and China.
A very sensitive area.
Exactly. Before the Z-Morh Tunnel, the winters meant they had to rely on the Indian Air Force to get troops and supplies in and out.
Yeah, it sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It was, and it cost a fortune.
So the Z-Morh Tunnel basically means there's finally a reliable ground route that's open all year.
You got it.
Right.
It doesn't matter how bad the winter gets, that tunnel is open.
I can definitely see why that's such a game changer for India's defense strategy.
It makes things so much faster, more efficient.
Yeah.
What used to involve all these complicated airlifts can now be done by road.
Much simpler.
Right? It reduces the burden on the Air Force, makes it cheaper to keep troops and resources in the region.
I see what you mean.
It's a big part of why India's cold start doctrine is so important.
Now, that's a key topic for Maines.
Absolutely.
So thinking about the bigger picture, how does this tunnel affect India's overall position in the region?
That's a great question. It definitely strengthens India's hand. Ladakh is right on the border with Pakistan and China.
And those borders have been pretty tense in the past.
For sure. So this tunnel allows for much better border management and surveillance.
Both crucial for national security.
Right. It means they can respond much more quickly to anything that happens.
Interesting. So it's not just about making travel easier, it's a statement.
Exactly. It's about being prepared and projecting strength.
Okay, so we've talked about defense. Let's shift gears for a second and talk about the local economy.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that the tunnel could turn Sonamarg into a year-round tourist destination.
I did.
Can you talk a bit more about that?
Sure. So before the tunnel, Sonamarg was totally cut off for months every year because of the snow.
Right.
The Z-Morh Tunnel changes all that. Suddenly you can visit any time of year.
Even in the winter.
Especially in the winter. That's when it gets really exciting.
Why is that?
Think about it. Sonamarg, with all its incredible scenery, could become a major hub for winter sports.
Like skiing and snowboarding.
Exactly. Things that were impossible before.
So what does that actually mean for the local economy? What are the concrete benefits?
It's all about the multiplier effect.
I've heard of that.
More tourists mean more demand for everything: hotels, restaurants, transportation, local crafts.
More jobs, basically.
Exactly. More business opportunities, a better standard of living for everyone. And it's not just Sonamarg.
The whole region benefits.
Exactly. The whole Ladakh region gets a boost.
It's pretty amazing that one project can have such a huge impact.
It is. But it's important to remember that there are two sides to every coin.
Meaning?
Well, there's some potential challenges that come along with all these benefits.
Oh, of course. Like what?
Well, the environment, for one.
Right. The Himalayas are such a fragile ecosystem.
They are. And any construction project, especially something as big as this, is going to have some impact.
Yeah.
We need to be really careful about things like deforestation, disruption of habitats, and protecting biodiversity.
It would be a shame to damage such a beautiful place.
Exactly. Policymakers need to make sure they're doing everything they can to protect the environment.
So things like sustainable construction practices, responsible waste management.
Exactly. Minimizing the tunnel's footprint on the environment. These are all things that need to be taken seriously.
It sounds like a classic dilemma: development versus environmental protection.
It is. It's tough to find that balance.
So how do you do it?
Yeah.
How do policymakers find a solution that works for everyone?
Well, you have to prioritize both economic growth and environmental protection.
Right.
Things like planting trees to replace the ones that were cut down,
Okay.
creating wildlife corridors so animals can still move around freely using eco-friendly materials and techniques.
So basically making the project as sustainable as possible.
Right. It's a complex issue. There's no easy answer.
I hear you. But it's a conversation that needs to happen for sure.
Absolutely.
Are there any other challenges we should be thinking about?
Yeah, one thing that comes to mind is the potential for more traffic.
With all the tourists and everything?
Right, and that can put a strain on the environment and the local communities.
Yeah, if tourism isn't managed properly, it can lead to pollution overcrowding.
Exactly. And that's why things like responsible tourism, community involvement, and careful planning are so important.
To make sure the benefits reach everyone.
And that Ladakh's unique culture and ecology are protected.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where development helps everyone.
Without harming the environment or disrupting the local way of life.
Right. Before we move on from this, I wanted to touch on something you mentioned earlier, the Z-Morh Tunnel project.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about that and how it connects to the Z-Morh Tunnel?
So the Z-Morh Tunnel is actually even more impressive than the Z-Morh.
Really?
It's still under construction, but it's going to be the longest tunnel in Asia.
Whoa, how long?
14.15 kilometers.
That's massive.
It's going to connect Sonamarg with the Dras-Kargil Road.
Wow, and it's being built at an even higher altitude than the Z-Morh Tunnel.
Yeah, the Z-Morh Pass is at around 11,575 feet.
That's crazy high.
It's a testament to how skilled the engineers working on this project are.
I can't imagine the challenges they must be facing.
It's definitely not an easy job.
So what does this mean for Ladakh? What happens when both of these tunnels are finished?
Well,
Yeah.
it's pretty incredible. Ladakh was isolated for so long, but now with these tunnels, it's going to be seamlessly connected to the rest of India.
It sounds like it's going to be a whole new world for them.
Yeah, It has the potential to be totally revolutionary, new opportunities for growth development,
Hmm.
and it really solidifies India's presence in the region.
Let's break it down a bit more. What about the strategic implications? I know that's a big deal for UPSC.
Oh, definitely. So we talked about how the Z-Morh Tunnel is already making a difference in terms of defense logistics, border management.
Right.
The Zohila Tunnel just adds to that. It's like creating this whole network for faster troop movement, quicker response times, and just getting supplies where they need to be.
So smoother operations all around.
Exactly. And that's crucial in a sensitive border region like that.
So for anyone prepping for the UPSC, they should be ready to answer a question about these tunnels.
Oh, for sure. Especially how they relate to India's relationship with China and Pakistan.
Okay, so not just the tunnels themselves, but the whole geopolitical context.
Right. The impact on regional stability, how it fits into India's overall defense strategy.
Got it. Thanks for the tip. Now, beyond defense, what about the economic transformation? You mentioned Ladakh becoming a real tourism hotspot.
Yeah, with year-round access, Ladakh has so much to offer.
What kind of impact are we talking about specifically?
Well, think about it. More tourists mean more jobs in all sorts of industries, hotels, restaurants, transportation, you name it.
Right.
Ladakh is also known for its handicrafts, so local artisans will have a much bigger market for their work.
That's great.
Even agriculture could benefit. Right now, farmers struggle to get their produce to market during the winter.
Because of the snow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The tunnels will change that. They'll have access to markets year-round.
Which means more income for them.
Right, a better quality of life.
So much potential. It's really interesting how these tunnels designed for connectivity are going to have such a ripple effect across the whole economy.
It's pretty amazing.
But is there a downside? Are we overlooking any potential problems?
Well, there's always a need to be responsible with development.
What do you mean?
Well, with more tourism and economic activity, there's always a risk of environmental damage.
Right.
We have to make sure that whatever happens is sustainable, that we're not harming Ladakh's fragile ecosystem.
So things like promoting responsible tourism, managing waste carefully.
Exactly. And making sure that any new infrastructure is built sustainably.
So balancing progress with preservation.
Right.
Are there other concerns?
Well, we have to think about the impact on Ladakh's culture, too.
With more exposure to the outside world.
Right. We have to find ways to preserve Ladakh's unique cultural heritage, support local traditions, and make sure development benefits everyone in the community.
Sounds like a balancing act.
It is. But with careful planning and making sure the community is involved, it's definitely possible.
So it's about making sure that development is good for Ladakh in the long run.
Absolutely. For the environment, the culture, and the people.
This has been a really fascinating deep dive. Expert speaker, thanks for sharing your insights.
My pleasure.
For those of you listening and getting ready for the UPSC exams, this is definitely something you want to pay attention to.
Definitely. It's not just about infrastructure. It's about understanding all the different factors that shape regional development, economic, strategic, social, environmental. You need to be able to connect those dots.
Great advice. And for those of you who enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more UPSC content. We'll see you next time.